What is going on? What's the deal? I am your host, Lex Black, and you are tuning into my show, Midnight Arcade. This is episode 7, and boy, oh boy, am I excited to have you guys here. But before we get into all the good stuff, I ask of you this: like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell icon to be notified whenever I drop that new heat. You heard? Today's show, we're going to be covering the immaculate Netflix series, Arcane. And of course, I have to hit you with this. This is a spoiler alert. I will be diving into some specifics about the story. I'm not going to do like a totally over the top spoiler ridden show, but there are going to be some things that I'm going to reveal. So like I said before, this is a spoiler warning. You have been warned, but we're not going to get into it until after the jump. All right, man. I'm amped up, man. So for the uninitiated on this subject, much like myself, right? This show is based off of the classic game, League of Legends, that came out about a decade ago. After watching this show, I kind of want to play it now. And speaking of which, I remember attending the PAX East video game convention back in 2014 or 2015. And there was this elaborate setup on a large stage area at the convention, and it was divided up into two sections. There was a red side and there was a blue side. Each side had their respective gamer team, and there was a massive screen set up for all to see. And these people were competing in League of Legends. And at the time, I didn't even realize that that very game would be the game that some 6 or 7 years later would become the immaculate CGI animated adaptation called Arcane. So with all that being said, I want to dive into what I personally feel makes this show so masterful and entertaining in my eyes. Just a couple of things. Now, I'm going to temper what I'm going to say with this. I'm not going to touch on every single aspect of the show. Like I said, there's going to be some significant spoilers, but I'm not going to get into every single nitty-gritty detail, but it's going to be like a nice overview of what I really liked about the show without getting too much into all the specific plot points, because if we did, then we'd be here forever, and that's not what I'm trying to do. So anyway, let's just jump right into it. The world. So this world is really cool. It's very much steampunk, the retrofuturistic technology based on the 19th century Wild West steam technology. The twist here is that there's a lot of magic interpolated into the technology. And with that, the story itself and the way how the writers set up the show, there's a lot of cyberpunk sensibilities and aesthetics as well. This is a tale of two cities, the utopian city of Piltover and then the slums, the city of Zaun. This tale is actually juxtaposed by multiple battles taking place on multiple fronts, politically, economically, philosophically, you name it. And there's turmoil everywhere you look. It doesn't matter if you're topside or underside, right? And a lot of these battles are idealism versus cynicism, ignorance versus reality, economic gluttony versus economic despair. There's heavy corruption on both sides, ironically enough. And each city doesn't even realize how alike they are. They're very much aligned with one another in that respect. The governing body of Piltover, referred to as the Council, is made up of a unique mix of beings, and it's as diverse as its broadly diverse population. And that's really cool to see. I really enjoy that aspect of the show. However, in spite of its diversity, governmental impotence still plagues its overall progress, much like what we deal with in our real lives. Demographics. So there's a lot of anthropomorphic humanoids walking about. In addition to that, there's large swaths of varied human races. There seems to be this general acceptance among the humanoid animals and the humans, and there doesn't really seem to be much of a divide or much tension. And I don't know if that was intentional by the writers or not, but either way, I feel like it was a good look. It's kind of a change of pace. We deal with a lot in our own world. Our people deal with a lot. I'm not trying to get too over the top with it, but it's the facts. Okay, we deal with a lot in our own real world, and it's nice to kind of escape from those realities to see that there are a multitude of different races and different beings who ultimately overall get along. They don't suffer from a lot of the ignorance that we do in our realities here. The tech. Technology, man. In spite of its very clear and obvious nods to the steampunk foundation, the clever infusion of magic, as I mentioned earlier, into its tech gives it an aura of like technological wonder that kind of sets it apart and far advanced from our technology, from our real world in many different ways. So there's some really cool examples of this, like airships. For all of my Final Fantasy buffs, when I say airships, you guys know exactly what I mean. For those who don't really know what an airship is, it's not a blimp, it's not an airplane. It's just look it up, man. Look it up. Travel portals, literal travel portals powered by hex tech or magic. Hoverboards, that got me at the trailer. When I saw the trailer and I saw the hoverboard combat, I was like, yeah, this is the one. This is the one. And then there's also these medicinal formulas that enhance the human physiology far beyond anything that we've seen in our lives. And then military weaponry that showcase out of this world capability and destructive force, right? The technology gives this world a sort of technological opulence that, again, our current world couldn't even really hope to emulate anytime soon, further adding to its amazing fantasy environment. This is a fantasy after all. This is the fantasy genre. Culture. So Piltover, the top city, the privileged city, is utopian, plentiful, beautiful, bountiful, and it's bourgeoisie through and through. It's very lavish, it's very posh, and it's very insulated. Did I say privileged? Well, I'm gonna say it again, privileged and sheltered, right? Whereas Zaun, the Undercity, is a haven for outlaws, criminal enterprise, violence, prostitution, organized crime. Many in the underground, many in Zaun, they adhere to a strict code of protecting their own despite any personal issues they may have with one another. This code is followed almost to a T, mainly to spite Piltover's law enforcement unit, the Enforcers. The Enforcers are known to poke their noses down there a lot, you know, pushing the weight around. And if the Enforcers come looking for someone from Zaun who might have ran a job stealing stuff from topside, the people at Zaun, they're not going to give the people up, even if they don't like that person. That just seems to be the general rule of ethics in Zaun, which I think is pretty interesting. And there's a lot of parallels. Like I said, this story is juxtaposed with a lot of things in our reality that we face that many may not be aware of and many may be aware of.
If you know, you know.
Animation. The artwork, the animation, the vibrant colorization are absolutely remarkable. Woo! Amazing stuff, man. For the character designs in particular, the excellence of the art direction shows itself no better than on Counselor Mel Murdata, in my personal opinion. See that? Completely beautiful. Amazing work. Amazing work. There's also an awesome infusion of CGI elements with animated accents with its special effects. And you'll see that very prevalent within like fight scenes and action scenes with the explosions. You'll see the CGI, but then you'll see the animated smoke and coloring. And when you watch it, you'll see what I mean. It's such a nice touch to the overall animation. The environment is absolutely breathtaking. From the amazing skylines to the majestic city architecture. Some of my favorite shots though are the night shots, and the night shots are best reflected in the city of Zaun. And the reason why I love it is it's like this fluorescent versus dark contrast, and it really captures an incredible mood, especially with the city of Zaun. It really paints a picture that you don't really need to ask any questions, you just get it when you see it. So the animation to me is near flawless, especially when it comes to the fight scenes and the action scenes. I just don't really have anything bad to say about the animation at all. These guys really put their whole foot into it, and it paid off, and it paid its dividends, and it's beyond satisfactory. All right, so now I'm gonna switch gears here. This is gonna be like a kind of like a rapid fire session. I'm gonna be doing some character profiles, but I'm just gonna do quick sentences. So we're just gonna be doing rapid fire, boom, 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 boom. So here we go. Vi, very hot-headed, fierce, street smart, caring, strong. She has a very strong sense of justice and vengeance. She's a hell of a fighter. She can scrap. She got hands. Powder / Jinx. Now, for those who've watched this show, she's kind of like two people. For those who haven't watched it, she's kind of like two people, okay? And you'll see what I mean. She's loving, okay? She's vulnerable. And that seems to plague her throughout her childhood to adulthood, or pre-adulthood, or whatever you want to call it. Mentally fragile, all right? Even at a young age. Well-to-do, but never really getting things right. Later on, she becomes angry, confused, even more mentally fragile. And she's trapped between the love for her sister that kind of sort of keeps her grounded still, and then the warped sense of chaos that her trauma made her addicted to. Vander, strong, influential, just, fair, fearsome. He can scrap. well respected, well connected. You heard me? Father figure. Jace Talus, innovative, somewhat naive, hopeful, very much an idealist. He's our resident Captain America when it comes to morality. And he pretty much maintains a very strong sense of morality throughout the show. He's got surprising fighting capability, okay? And he's surprisingly politically savvy, even though he's more of a scientist than anything else. Counselor Mel Murdada, ambitious, cunning, clever, and extremely politically savvy. Sultry, beautiful, persuasive, and a pacifist to a certain point, much like Jace. She's a big picture thinker and something of a futurist. Victor, reserved, low-key, focused, and dedicated to the advancement of humankind via hex tech, like Jace, one of his closest friends. And he's very much an idealist like Jace too. Echo, a natural prodigy, kid genius, very caring, very protective of his friends and those that he considers family, extremely brilliant, okay? And incredibly capable both physically and mentally. When you watch the show, you'll see what I mean. Caitlin, calm, collected. She has a very analytical mind. Though she's been sheltered, she's lived a privileged life, she's proven herself more than willing to learn and expand her horizons and understandings of the world around her. Silco. Oh man, this guy's a doozy. Ruthless, power hungry, cunning, and dangerously conniving and warped. But he's more layered than meets the eye, as there's more depth to his character than his outward disposition and appearance would reveal. Heimerdinger. He's kind of like something of a living legend in the scientific community and on the council itself. He's one of the most brilliant scientific minds in the entire story. He's experienced due to his advanced longevity, like he's literally hundreds of years old. Yes, hundreds. And it's with this experience and longevity that Heimerdinger has a tendency to proceed with extreme caution, almost frustratingly so, when it comes to the advancement of hex tech, as he's seen the evils that society would resort to when they've come into contact with such a powerful source of energy and magic. And he doesn't want a repeat of that in the new iteration of the society in Piltover. It causes him to butt heads with his protege, Jace. All right. So another important subject that I wanted to focus on that I'm going to dive into a little bit further on in this video, mental health plays a major role in nearly every main character, but it rears its ugly head most in none other than Powder/Jinx, whose sanity holds on by like a thread. Her mind is fraying at the edges like all the time due to her traumatic upbringing, but I'll touch on that more in a bit. This one is close to my heart. Black hair. You heard me? Black hair. Exactly what it is. Black hair. I gotta focus on it, man, and I gotta celebrate it completely and thoroughly, because there have been plenty of animated shows throughout the annals of animated history, okay, that have completely and thoroughly fucked up this important aspect, okay? The hairstyles of black characters in this show are accurate, texture-wise and style-wise, and it's really, I gotta say, it's really refreshing to see being done with this level of care, without fear, and with education and understanding of that cultural aspect. When you watch the show, you'll understand what I'm saying. A side note, many indie comic illustrators, many of whom I follow on Instagram and other platforms, they're revolutionizing this in their own ways. And I gotta tip my hat to those guys. Some of my favorites that I follow, Nicholas Draper Ivy, he's doing some work on the revamping of Static Shock. He's one of the main illustrators there, and he's amazing. He does awesome work. This other gentleman, his Instagram name is Ron Like the Wind. He has his own fantasy series that he's coming up with, and the way how he creates his characters are absolutely immaculate, amazing, and beautiful, right? And then one of my favorite guys, along with these two, Dot Nova, aka Robo Peasy, right? The way how he draws his characters is it's kind of based off of Kishimoto, but then he kind of developed his own style. And when I say Kishimoto, I'm talking about Masashi Kishimoto, the creator of the Naruto/Boruto series, right? I just wanted to name a few guys, black illustrators who are doing it big, they're creating content. I felt like it was important to kind of add this because I don't feel like it gets highlighted enough across anime, period. The music. I love the infusion of modern day music from our world, and it's interpolated into the world of Arcane. The musical score overall was very solid, and I was pleasantly surprised to hear King Push yuck at the beginning of episode like 6 or 7, I can't remember. Yo, honestly, it's crazy to hear him talk that brick talk on a fantasy animated show on Netflix, and I am so very here for it. If you know, you know. See what I did there? The plot. So here's like the meat and potatoes. As much as this story is a tale of two cities, it's also a tale of two sisters who end up crisscrossing paths as they ping pong between good and evil and like everywhere in between in the gray area. It's also a story about those who attain power with pure intentions to help and change society and lives for the better, but that idealism is stymied by corruption, skepticism, fear, extreme caution, you name it. There's a roadblock for it. It's a story of love, family, loss, and the trauma that ensues from the infection of societal corruption, from the top down, left to right, all over the place. It's also a story about personal struggle, severe mental health, crises. Sorry if I've mispronounced that, guys. Correct me in the comments, okay? And a story of those trying to find their way through the ever-present darkness that plagues every single character in this story. This chronicles a journey of some who yearn for family, love, attention, and appreciation, even if those things come from those whose minds have been poisoned by the ills of their own trauma, right? This is a story of addiction and the degeneration of a populace only to serve a financial means economically, where drugs not only corrupt the mind, but severely contort the body in grotesque ways if taken too much over too long a period of time. There are major implications. This is a story about power, okay? And the severe lack of understanding of the incredible power sources and society's rush to control said power, despite not fully understanding the implications of its misuse. This is also a story of hope, and as cheesy as it sounds, I know, it's not only about the power of destruction, but the power of perseverance and the power of creation and innovation, making something great out of nothing. Honestly, if there's a character that I enjoy the most, it's probably Echo. Right, is a kid genius who lost his mentor to the violence and the corruption, but instead of letting the tragedy like destroy him mentally, like some other character, he dusted himself off, all right? Built a small budding society within the pestilence and the desolation. And that society served as a safe haven for those who were fleeing the turf wars between Zon and Piltover. He also created an organization of freedom fighters that basically attacked illegal supply chains of Silco's designer drug, if you will, thousands of gallons of it called Shimmer. And it's the prominent drug that plagues a lot of the characters in this story, both major, minor, and fill-in characters and whatever have you. It does crazy things to the mind, body, and soul of those who ingest it. Still staying on Echo, the dude can scrap. So not to mention everything else, but he can scrap. He's incredibly skilled, and that hoverboard, man, God, man, that's crazy. I love it. I love it all. The character that I feel for and loathe the most is Powder, aka Jinx. As a young girl, she was sweet and caring and well-to-do. She loved and idolized her big sister Vi, and truly cared for her father figure Xander and her friends who became her surrogate siblings. She meant well, but she never quite got things right, no matter how hard she tried. And boy, oh boy, did that trend continue and carry on, and it had some major implications. Unfortunately, she is the product of a cruel world that shows zero mercy. Her coping mechanisms after her trauma severely affected her mental faculties, to the point that I believe that she began showing symptoms of schizophrenia. When you couple her instability with her new enigmatic, evil-leaning alignment via Silco, spoiler, I both feel for her, and then I kind of like, I don't loathe her, but I'm like, oh man, here we go. You know what I'm saying? Because of what she's become. And she's become like this fractured girl in search for stability, but was comforted by lies and loss. And the result is a severely twisted version of herself, with the innocent girl on the inside fighting to get out, to maintain and regain control and balance of her life. The characters that I empathize with the most, honestly, are Vi and Victor. Vi, simply because she's stuck between doing what's right for the greater good and doing what's right for her sister. The two painful paths, unfortunately, are seemingly mutually exclusive and completely incompatible with one another. With Victor, he got the short end of the stick, man. He was plagued with an illness from childhood. It prevented him from being able to experience the fullness of childhood in its entirety. You know, he was something of a half cripple, and, you know, he spent his whole life wishing that he could get to the top so that he can help people like him and others and just help society as a whole. You know, so he really got the short end of the stick. He's really quiet, he's really reserved as a result, but he's really focused, and he's a brilliant mind, and he's really, really dedicated to like bettering not only himself, but other people around him. But it's almost to a fault, right? And there are implications for that too. Ding, 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 ding. So like I said before, there are consequences for missteps here in this show, and they're made plain and severe, all right? People die, and blood stains the hands of those who were once innocent, right? Don't let the beautiful animation and art style fool and bedazzle y'all, all right? This story is dark, and characters pay for their actions. whichever actions they take. I knew shit got real when the explosion happened in the attempt to free Xander from captivity at the hands of he's like a legitimate fuck up, even though she means well. It sucks, right? And just when I'm getting attached to certain characters, the writers are like, nah, son, nah, we taking some away, right? They will take it there. I knew this show was gonna be good just based off of how it made me feel initially. Like when I really am into a show, I get this feeling like, damn, I could see myself living in this world. How fun would that be? I had a similar feeling when I first played Final Fantasy VII. Like I really wished I lived in that world, in the world of Gaia. And it's the same feeling that I have, or had, and still have, when I look at one of my favorite anime manga series ever. One that I cover extensively on my channel here, the Borutoverse. The Narutoverse, all right? It's the Narutoverse. I wish I lived in that universe. If I could live in this Arcane universe and roll with a particular crew, it would definitely be Echo, as I've mentioned before. I feel like my fantasy world iteration would be nice at all things combat and ingenuity and hoverboard combat. But anyway, this was just a kind of like an overview of what I really loved about Arcane. I didn't touch all of the plot points. I didn't cover every single character. I didn't cover every plot twist because again, like I said, we'd be here all day if we did that. And I'm not trying to do that, man. I'm just trying to give y'all some quick entertainment, boom, 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 bam, and I'm out, right? So either way, Arcane on Netflix is immaculate. It's amazing. I love it. From the animation to the world, to the characters, to the character development. There were some things that kind of threw me off. There were some events that I wish that they covered a little bit more extensively to kind of provide a little bit more layering and backstory. But outside of that, there really isn't much that I can say negatively about it. This is a really, really good show, and I suggest that you guys watch it. Season 2 is probably not going to be here until 2023, which sucks. But you know, if you're a habitual watcher and rewatcher of your favorite shows like me, then, you know, you're going to have no problem rewatching it again. Like I said, this is a great show. I highly suggest you watch it. This is the end of episode 7. I am your host, Lex Black. As always, make sure you like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell icon to be notified from whenever I drop new heat. You heard. I thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure you, like I said, engage with me, man. Comment. Let's talk about stuff. What did I miss? What did you want me to talk about? Hit me up in the comment section, man. I'm excited to have you here. Be ready for episode 8, and we're going to keep this thing going, man. I thank you guys, and I'm out.